Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to do a quick little shop project that is long overdue. So we are always getting like unknown engines or stealing engines out of cars and estates and different things that we grab and are known good engines, and then we get them home, and a lot of times we start them on the floor, and remember the Cadillac video, we started things rolling around on the ground, and it's always a little bit sketchy. So trying to get a little more organized and professional, if you will, not that that'll ever happen, and build an engine run stand. So I got all kinds of like carts when we do these buyouts at estates. A lot of times there is engines or bodies or pieces or parts that are sitting on rolling carts. We always take them home because they're always good to roll around stuff in our shop, but we usually have an excess of them anymore, it seems. So I have this one that we got in Tennessee that there was a piece of like a four-door body carcass on, and we sold off that body carcass section, and we have this nice cart that was built out of angle iron, has some nice casters on it that are heavy duty, and I think it would be a good candidate. So the idea with this is that something we could build that's fairly universal, or something that we can easily change to go from flathead to an early overhead valve engine or whatever we want to put on it, with a handful of small modifications. So we're going to be building it to fit a flathead for now, but my goals for this are I want to be able to have some gauges on it that we can monitor the engine, oil pressure, water temperature, that kind of stuff. And then we want to have a radiator on it, obviously, so that we can cool it, we can let it run, because as you guys may know, with a lot of these older engines, especially flatheads, they may start up and run fine, but they will heat up right away if there's a crack in the block or something like that. So we want to try and have all that stuff there so we can basically run this thing. I'll probably eventually get like an electric fan that you can put on it just to run a fan to keep it cool. And we can really run an engine, tune an engine in, and it will make my life a lot easier before we put them in even our own cars when we're working on them. We can run it in on the stand, make sure everything's set up really good. So we're going to start with this, bunch of scrap metal, and build something that hopefully should be pretty usable by the end of this video. And I got a spare engine sitting out here that I've been wanting to run on this stand that'll be absolutely perfect. So let's get started. All right, so these are the candidates we had. We had bought a K.R. Wilson engine stand that was on this kind of heavy duty homemade rack here, and I was going to use that, but you guys could see it's quite a bit shorter, and really it's like you could barely fit an engine on this. And while it would have worked out okay, I think it would have been hard to fit everything we want on one stand easily. So I kind of decided against using this, and we went with this larger one here. It's wider, and it's also a lot longer, so it's going to take up more space. We could stash it when it's not in use, but we're going to have room to put, like right here, we'll put like a little like firewall type setup. We'll have our engine in here, and then we'll hopefully have room like out in here to put a radiator. So I have Mike at the warehouse. He's today going to grab me like the best kind of like radiator we have laying around, hopefully from like a 40 Ford or a pickup or something that's pretty big, that we can put on there, that we can just use without having to spend any money on it. So you can see the difference in size. It'll definitely be a lot better, and we can fit a lot more engines on here more easily. It'll be more room to adapt and upgrade as we go with it. So we're going to take this carpet off and start taking some measurements, and we can get to cutting some material and start welding stuff up. I don't know if you should have that. Just saying. I know you think it's something to do. Luckily, it sat out in the rain. Go ahead. Okay. This one here, and then we'll just flip them again. Okay.
Go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
You slipped on that side?
No, I got about 3 inches to go.
Sitting there quickly. Hold on.
2.
That catch over the stud?
Yeah, it's gone. It's going to slide right down. Just clearing the stud now. Cool. Upgrades. All right, we got everything bolted together. It seems good, so we're gonna let the rest of the weight off this thing and hopefully it doesn't come toppling to the ground. Reality TV show, that's where we go to commercial. I'm like, oh my God. Just kidding, it's fine. All right, there you go. Nice. starting to look like something here.
Yeah, it is.
Man station. I was saying to Jeff yesterday, I said this will be somewhere I need to keep a flathead or something on this stand ready to run all times as like a party trick.
Oh, sure,
Just
absolutely.
hit the button and start it. Look at that.
Yep, my buddy's uncle has a 50 Mercury with a hot flathead in it. When he built the motor, he liked it so much, he had the guy build a second one for him, and put it on the stand, and it just fires up in his garage.
So every now and then, just for fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm getting to be old man status like that. You like that?
Yeah.
That looks real cool, don't
Yeah,
it?
it does. Yeah, that's a good angle, just so you can see when you're standing
Yeah.
right at it, yeah.
Oh, that's gonna look so cool.
Hell yeah. Hells yeah.
Does it look fairly centered? Yeah, I'm looking down the center in here, and it looks like it's fairly close. All right, I'll zap it. We'll call that good.
Excellent.
Now I'm getting excited.
Yep.
Now we can start hopping it up.
Heck yeah.
Hop our cart up here.
Yep.
All right, Moon. Put the ignition switch in. Goes like that. So we got the engine stand pretty far along. We got the dash, so I ended up using this dash. I made this in a Eastwood video like years ago. Just kind of like a fun just dash I made from scratch. It was kind of cool, and I just had it hanging up, and luckily I kept it around because it was perfect for this. So I put a little blank, I filled the one hole back in, and we put a speedometer, geez. We put a ignition switch in right there. That's good. So this is a full switch. It's a switch that also, is ignition, but then also has a starting function on it. So Steve's working on wiring that up. I already made some battery cables out of some heavy wire here for the starter and the battery. And I'm working on I just grabbed the random carb I had laying around that we're gonna try. It seems okay. Probably have to go to the warehouse to get a better carb I have, but this one hopefully will work. But we're gonna try and crank this thing over just to make sure that our wiring stuff works, and then I might try and put some fuel in this and see if maybe we can get this thing to just fire off with just a little bit more work. So I'm gonna dig around my parts stash, find a couple things this thing's missing, and then we will try and start this thing. Ooh. Feel it in my bones. We're gonna make some noise. We'll have to make a wire then for this
Yeah, for the coil, yep. I got the coil wire ready, it's not
Oh, yeah,
hooked up to anything.
But we could try this part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely see if the starter hits.
All right.
There.
There you go.
Nice.
All right, step one.
Nice, oh, that cranked over beautiful too.
Yeah. All right, so we've confirmed that we finally have spark. We think it was a bad condenser, dirty points, and a coil wire. Maybe a bad coil too. We had a bunch of stuff that was not ohming out or testing correctly. So we think we have spark now. So we're gonna try and force feed her and see if it'll make some noise. Go ahead. See if it'll do anything.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
Yep. Ooh.
It's gonna kick.
Yeah.
And it's gonna smoke an awful lot from the looks of what just happened there.
Yeah. It's more than enough. It should probably run on that for a second or two. Go ahead. Okay. Yes. All right. We just need to give this thing some fuel and it'll run for sure. Oh boy.
Exactly, the problem is... Ooh. It's right there.
We're there.
Yep. It. And it's out of juice.
I think we're out of fuel. It idled for like a second.
It did.
Whew. There's all kinds of soot and
Oh yeah.
good God. All right, so after Steve and I fought and eventually kind of won, we got this engine to make some noise, but the carb that I had just laying around here on the shelf was not that great. So Mike actually brought over a Holly carburetor that is laying here somewhere. That is like one he got with his engine. It's all rebuilt and he's not going to be using. So I also went to the warehouse today and we did some digging around and found a bunch of gauges. So a bunch of gauges in here and fittings and stuff. I grabbed an extra Stromberg just in case we decide to use that instead. Never know. But I think the carb Mike had was good. And I have an extra fuel pump here. Fuel pump push rod was not in that engine because it was a propane engine or a natural gas engine originally, and it didn't have a fuel pump. So I grabbed the fuel pump here that we had in our stash. So I have a bunch of stuff here that we can put on. The other thing I'm going to do is take a piece of solid round bar stock and weld it to here and put a little like IV type setup with a hook that we can, you know, just like a hook right here. We can hang my little can gas tank right on that. And then we should be on to something once I get a better carburetor on, get that to hang, fill it with fuel, then we could probably start it and it'll kind of feed the carburetor and we should be able to actually let this thing run and idle for a few seconds or a few minutes, whatever, before we start hooking up coolant lines. But I'd like to get everything hooked up so it's just kind of like turnkey in how this stand is going to work. All right, so we got our stand pretty much cobbled together. One problem, we were checking with our gauges. We wanted to get the water temp and the oil working. So we had to swap out the only non-store warner gauge that was in here, vintage store warner gauge, is the one that wasn't working for us, so it was bad. So we had some brand new wings gauges that store warner sent us. And although I was trying to use vintage ones, we threw this one in for now. It works, of course, perfectly. So for this test, we're gonna use this, and I'm gonna have to look around for a matching to all these gauges. Electric water temp gauge, because we have a mechanical and we have an electric. And because the flathead has a smaller port in it, I didn't have an adapter, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so got a better carb on, got the water temp gauge that should work now. We put some coolant or water in the radiator. What looked to be a good radiator, not so good. It looks like somebody dropped the radiator. Hopefully not Mike on the way to delivering it to the shop.
I did not.
on the drain, on the petcock, so it is leaking, of course. Both of them are leaking. So we just had an epiphany. I don't know why we never thought of this. Yeah, we have this tape just for now.
It also uses a radiator cap we did not have.
Yeah. We have like a bunch of junky 32 grills. So I think what we really need to do and would be fitting is put a 32 radiator with grill shell on here because, well, why not? So that will be one of our number one upgrades. Mike made some hoses here for the flathead. Big thing we're gonna try and do is get stuff that's so it's really easy to set engines up. So APAs, the hoses are a little different. We're gonna keep all of this hose section and we'll just mark it that it's for an APA. Every engine we could throw it on. These lower hoses should be basically the same for pretty much any flathead within reason. So those will be good, and you know, kind of keep gathering parts and making it easier to work as we go. I got my oil line hooked up, that's all good. Fuel line's hooked up. It's a little cold today. We'll try and start it. I think I have it choked a little bit already, but give it a little squirt.
Sounds like a tractor.
I think that starter's hanging up a little bit. That's pretty good.
Give it a rev just for the camera. So it's been running what, 10 minutes?
Probably 10-15 minutes. We're almost at 160, so this is why it's good, especially for flatheads. I've been needing a stand like this because I've gotten burned before. I've gotten an engine, started it up, it ran, I thought it was good, put it in a car or sold it to somebody, and then they found out that it had a crack or something, and the thing overheated instantly. So, like I said, we were running, it's probably close to 15 minutes now. We just taped up our vacuum line here, and the thing started running a lot better. We need a fitting for the vacuum that goes from the distributor for the advance. It actually smoothed out how it idled. Now we can actually rev it up a little bit, and it revs up good. And you can hear it just sounds really good, but a really sweet stock flathead, you can turn the idle down to where it's like, we were joking, it's like a hit and miss engine. It's like almost nothing. Now we can't touch the key and start it like that, but
It sounds.
you can hear how quiet the engine is. You know, again, having a run stand, we're able to do all this stuff and fiddle with all these things. It's not in a car. If we're selling an engine, we could do this. Somebody can hear it. We can have it on a run stand. They can come and see it, and it's just way easier when we buy and sell, and also for our own car. So it's going to be like so valuable to have this.
Yeah, we can start it for a customer, let it sit for 15 minutes, show it doesn't heat up instantly. The upward exhaust definitely does not.
Yeah, that's not a good feature.
No.
All right, so this week's project of doing this scrap bin run stand is a total success. I started on, I think it was, what, Tuesday.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know what I'm going to work on today because we had like kind of some in-between stuff going on, and I was like, you know what, we've been talking about doing the run stand, let's do it today. And we got pretty much most of the stand built in a day. And then it took another couple of days to refine stuff, get things set up, get the gauges all pretty much set up. And we have a good running flathead that's been sitting around kind of wondering what the situation is with it. Now, this was an industrial engine that I mentioned earlier in the video that I bought at auction. And I bought 2 of these at auction. And there is some old wives' tales about these industrial engines that all of them have like a cam that is ground for constant RPM, so they don't really have the ramp up of a normal like street car you would want, where it ramps up and the lift is like really low on them. So we've proved with this engine that that's not the case. So when I sold this engine originally, I probably sold it for a little less money than what the engine was actually worth, because I didn't have a run stand at the time. I didn't take the time to run it and prove that it revs up and it works as it should and doesn't need the cam changed and all of that. So that is a big reason why with this stuff, we actually, when we buy and sell and different things, I sell stuff really cheap because you don't really know. So having this stand, we can prove that it's a good running engine, doesn't smoke, doesn't overheat, any of that type of stuff. That's always a worry with flatheads. We can do that. We can put speed equipment on it, and we can test carbs and different stuff like that. That'll be really, really nice. So this engine is pretty much good. Ran it for probably, at this point, it's been 20 minutes we were running it. I think it was just at 160, and it was no problem at all. It didn't overheat or anything like that. We're gonna have to make a couple revisions on this stand. Number one, we need to probably get a set of like universal headers that we're gonna make for flatheads. Number one, that we can just bolt on here and probably put some kind of muffler on there, because if you are tuning an engine and you want to really hear what it sounds like on this engine, it's not as bad with the cast manifolds, but you're gonna need something you can put a muffler, you can actually hear what the engine sounds like to tune it and everything. So I want to do that. We need to run like a vacuum setup from that vacuum gauge, so that eventually we'll have a really easy to set up. We can run a vacuum line and we can tune a carb and everything like that more than by ear. We can use the vacuum gauge and a couple other things, fuel pressure gauge, stuff like that, for something that's a little more where we're testing the function of fuel pumps and stuff like that. We can do that, but we can grow into the stand, which is the goal. We're definitely going to change out the radiator for, like I mentioned, probably a 32 grill and radiator, which would just be ridiculous and awesome. So we're going to be doing that, but otherwise really happy with it. When we pull this off, we'll be painting everything up and dressing it up once we get this engine off the stand. But we have a whole slew of engines. Mike's flathead for his 34 project, we want to do some stuff to that, get that running, and maybe even put some of his dress-up parts on. So this stand you will see in a ton of videos throughout, and has been long overdue. So thank you guys for watching. It's been a fun one, and it's really cool that we were able to build this for $0. We literally bought nothing. It's all stuff that we have laying around the shop, and we were able to put together a really cool run stand. So thank you guys for following along. Catch you later.